Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music, and today is the continuing saga of that 30-minute composition I did yesterday. I'd left a bunch of things undone. You can't get everything done in 30 minutes. And I finished, I think, the whole composition today. But when you're writing for theater, there are a bunch of considerations. Let's look at the finishing touches and then maybe proceed into looking at how I go about mastering to deliver things to my sound designer. Yeah, here we go. Well, I don't know if you saw that video from yesterday, and you probably can get away with watching this without having seen it, but wouldn't be a bad idea to go back a day and look at that. It's a 30-minute composition, but I mercifully edited it down. My big question was, what about the sound of these skiddaw stones, this sort of igneous rock marimba thing? Very persistent sound. And I had reservations about it. What I wound up doing was pulling out. My initial performance was just straight eighth notes throughout with slight variations within sort of a D minor modal world. And eventually I realized I couldn't have it be just steady the whole time. If we skip forward, you'll see there's some real holes in the rhythm, and I fill those holes with other things, and that's perfectly normal. Well, one of the things that's super important to me is getting a decent, bass in place. I love this bass. Now, the bass that I've chosen is a Colegno upright from Spitfire's Solstice library. Now, Colegno means with the wood of the bow. Bum, bum, bum. You hear sort of slapping the strings. So you get a big percussive effect, and that's going to go well with the drums. So the overall effect at the top is quite big. Simple bass line repeated. And I've eliminated all the tracks I'm not using. I'm really only using 8, mercifully, tracks in this. And the drum group is really important for me in this, and it kind of goes on. Now, the whole thing kind of percolates and kind of like gives me 2 minutes of underscoring. And there really are sort of 2 big components to this underscore. And I think this is what I want to do today. I'd like to split out the whole composition into stems, a percussive stem and a sustained or tonal stem. Now, most of this is percussive, and in some respects, the only thing that's actually sort of mellow tonal, so to speak, is this sort of choir pad of the men. It's just kind of there as tonal mayonnaise, kind of evening everything out, pulling it all together. But I think it's possible that if I add the stones as a rhythm and the bass, I'll get a piece which will have some character. And then the second stem, you're ahead of me, I'm sure, just the drums. Now, there's definitely some slightly tonal elements in there, right? In fact, the Resonate kit from Spitfire, this is Evelyn Glennie's terrific, very strange kit, I think gives me a lot of character and story. It's not just a rhythm, it's got some mystery to it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to bounce these 2 stems out, and then we're going to fly over to my 2-track editor. I use DSP Quattro, and we'll look a little bit about how I prepare those stems to deliver to my sound designer. Okay. Once you've bounced your stems, open them up in your 2-track editor. It could be a free editor like Audacity or any number of others. I used Bias Peak for the longest time, really liked it. It went under. And then DSP Quattro is my current 2-track editor of choice. Here they are over here, and I'm just going to master them independently because they're really different content-wise. So I can drag. Let's do the tonal one first. I'm going to drag it in. I've just zoomed in to the very beginning of the first hit, and I'm going to create a tiny little fade here. I don't really want a click. So I'm looking at the tops and tails of my waveform. This is almost at the sample level, isn't it? And then at the end of the file, I want to prepare something that's not going to cause clicks. I'll do the same thing. I'll do a reverse fade out at the end. And now it's time to master the thing a little bit. And this involves careful listening. So I'm going to switch my speakers, and I don't know, it might be a little bit loud, but I have to do this. So now I'm on the big monitors, and I'm going to add a couple of sort of mastering effects. And I'm going to be careful about it, but here's the thing. I need to make sure the frequency spectrum is nice and even, and that I've got good overall levels so that when I hand it off, it'll match all the other tracks I hand my sound designer. So my very first thing is just to sort of like tame resonances and big old peaks by using Soothe. There are a bunch of presets, and there are some mastering presets. So I'm going to go to one which I know well just to get us started. Listening from the beginning and taking a look at these little dips here represent existing frequencies in the track. It's a sort of a multi-band compression. I actually don't want to hit that too hard because I'm going to use some multi-band EQ and compression in the next stage, which is Isotope's mastering plugin. So let's go over to that. It's my next level. I've used a bunch of other mastering plugins over the years. I like this. It gives me nice, uniform, consistent results. I could build up a path myself, but let's use their master assistant. You just kind of give it a nice high level, and it listens. This might blow out a little bit. It adjusts EQ for an even response across the spectrum. And it listens to the overall dynamic range to adjust compression, speed of compression, and type of compression. And then finally this dynamic EQ. So the initial equalizer wants more highs and a little bit more in the bass. You can see that. Let's go back. Overall dynamics, sort of a simple, easy 10-to-1 ratio right up at the top. This is a lot of high hits here, right? And then we can see how the dynamic EQ is pulling some frequencies out. It's mostly taming that bass, isn't it? And the overall maximizer hitting the peaks pretty hard, maybe too hard. Sort of want that dynamic range between the peaks and the valleys for theater anyway. When I'm satisfied with what I have, and that's not bad, I go ahead and render those insert effects, creating a new audio file that I'm going to call Summer March Tonal Stem Master, and then export it for use for my sound designer. My sound designer doesn't want what I think a lot of people now call stems, which aren't really stems, they're tracks, individual tracks from my entire session. The sound designer does not want my snare drum track. They want a percussion stem, all the drums, maybe the bass is included. And this is typical for handing off to video editors as well. They'll frequently ask for stems. What they want is a set of pads, the lead voice, melody, something like that, if there is one, percussion, 3 stems. Very often you can do it with 3. Sometimes you want to do 4. Stems are aggregate mixes that focus on specific areas of your arrangement so that in post, whoever is responsible for putting everything together has a little more flexibility than they would have if you just handed them a full mix. And there's a plus for us as composers and producers as well. If you're careful about your stems, they won't be able to mess you up too much down the line. All right, so let's go over to the drum stem. Same deal now. We're just going to do the same thing. So in this case, it wants a little less bass. I'm not sure I agree with it. And a real bump above 6K. Okay, I think that's actually fair enough. No dynamics plug-in. They actually turned it off because there's not a big dynamic range in this. It's all thump, thump, thump. And then let's look at how the dynamic EQ is affecting the track. Pulling out right here. Let's process that. And we should take a look at it after we do. You see how the waveform looks now. I'll show it to you in a moment. So we're going to pull this in and see what it looks like now. This is the pre-master waveform display. And this is the master waveform display. And we've all seen this before. This is it's what a lot of hip-hop tracks wind up looking like. I don't mind this in this context. I think that's going to be useful. All right, I'm going to export these for my sound designer, and we share everything in a big Google Cloud folder doc thing. All the designers have folders, and we can all reference each other's content in that way. I still have more work to do, but Tuesday is the day the actors and all the designers get together and read through the script for the first time together. And it's always a big moment to hear words which I've been working really just off the page with coming out of the mouths of the actors who'll do the show. Really changes things sometimes. We have songs, some people will be singing, we have recorded songs in the show, and then all my instrumental music as well. Well, I hope this has been useful. Subscribe, ding the bell, and I will see you next time.